Mae Govannen, my Elven brothers and sisters. Today I'd like to have a very serious conversation about the subject of regret and how so many people take to their graves the regrets of things that they did or did not do throughout their lives. It might be interesting to note that most regrets are those that they did not do, not the ones that they did do, but the ones that they did not do in their lives. It is very important that we live true to ourselves so that should you leave this world, that you leave it with no regrets, that you live the life that was true for you. I've mentioned this a couple of times on Facebook lately. To thine own self be true, William Shakespeare. Such a very simple statement, to thine own self be true, and yet most humans on this world right now do not live true to themselves. They are more afraid of what others will say, how they'll be attacked, sometimes even physically, for wanting to express who they are. Certainly a lot of people are attacked emotionally, spiritually, verbally, because they have the courage to try to be who they're supposed to be. And this is very evident in the Elven community. I mean, how many people out there have heard others say, well, there's no such things as elves, or, oh, you must be crazy, or you're insane because you believe that you're an elf, or that you believe that elves do exist. And that's very sad, and it causes a lot of people to put themselves into their own self-imposed prison. And it does not have to be. You hold the key to your own prison. You can release yourself whenever you'd like to, and you can be who you are. And some people will say, well, that's easy for you to say. It's easy for you to say, you can go ahead and be yourself. And maybe you've altered your life enough or created the circumstances to where you have a sanctuary to be able to do that. And I have done that. I agree that it is easy to say it, but I also have walked that path of the persecution and the abuse for being someone other than what conforms to society. And I've been blessed. I found that within myself to be able to be who I am. Unfortunately, most people end up going to their graves deeply regretting what they did not do, that they did not allow themselves to be who they are. There is a very important story I think I've told before in one of my other videos. The story, and this is a true story, this was about a doctor who became the first professor to teach in the United States, to teach a course on love. Okay, not just mushy love, but the history, the culture, the chemistry, tradition, all about what is love. What is this thing called love? And he was teaching in Berkeley. No surprise there. He was teaching in Berkeley. And one day in class, this story moved me, and it changed my life. He was standing up in front of class, and he told the story of a young lady, a student that he used to have, and he related how it had changed his life. Well, the story goes that one day as class was ending, she always kind of sat towards the back of the class. She came up front and handed him a note, gave him a note, and out she went. About 2 weeks after she gave him the note, she committed suicide. All right, and he read the note to the class, and the note said, "It's not death I'm afraid of, obviously not. It's not death that I'm afraid of. What I am afraid of is that I will reach the point of death and learn that I never lived my life at all." That moved me so incredibly to go, I mean, how can we waste this precious gift that we were given? Yes, I believe in the halls of Mandos. I believe in reincarnation. But what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong and this is the only life you have? Are you going to blow it because you were too afraid to be who you are supposed to be, to who you are inside? I have learned throughout my life that the world will eventually catch up if you are who you are. Well, so this video is about regrets and about how not to live a life with regret. And what inspired me to do this video, besides all the events that I've experienced in my life, is a wonderful book out right now. It's by Bronnie Ware. and it's top 5 regrets of the dying. Bronnie Ware was a palliative nurse. Palliative means to just give them comfort that these are people who are dying. Usually the elderly, they're dying. And palliative means to just try to make them comfortable while you wait for them to pass. And so that was her job. What a horribly difficult job that can be. What an amazing heart and sense of unconditional love to be able to do something like that. Well, she did. And these are basically the memoirs of what she experienced through those years. And she wrote down the top 5 regrets of the dying. And if you will please listen to this video and do your best to not have these regrets in your life. And you can do that now. You can start now and have the kind of life that you dreamed you could have, no matter what anybody else thinks. Okay, so we'll go through here. Number 1, the individual said that they wished that I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That was number 1. And number 1 was that they wished that they'd had the courage to live the life that was for them, that was true to them, not what others expected. And she goes on and she writes, this was the most common regret of all. When people realize that their life is almost over and look back clearly on it, it's easy to see how many dreams have gone unfulfilled. Most people have not honored even half of their dreams and had to die knowing that it was due to choices they had made or not made. Health brings a freedom very few realize until they no longer have it. Okay, that's what Bronnie wrote for the number 1 reason. Just make that choice to be who you are. You're an elf, be an elf. Be whatever your heart tells you to be. It really doesn't matter what others think in the long run. The next one that they had wished, that they wished that I hadn't worked so hard. All right. You know, people think that people in the olden days worked a lot harder than they do now. And for certain times of the year, they did. They worked really, really hard about 6 to 9 months of the year. And then they all kind of holed up during the winter time and didn't work. They told stories. They ate from the stores. They played music. There was in some ways more time off. They have found, there were some studies done that found that people work longer hours today, and yet life is supposed to be easier. Suicide has increased greatly in the United States. It's epidemic in Japan. People work too hard and don't appreciate this divine gift that we were given of life. So they wish they hadn't worked so hard. This came from every male patient that I nursed, she wrote. They missed their children's youth and their partner's companionship. Women also spoke of this regret, but as most were from an older generation, many of the female patients had not been breadwinners. All of the men I nursed deeply regretted spending so much of their lives on the treadmill of a work existence. Depends on what you want out of life. Do you want a lot of material things, or do you want a lot of memories? Do you want a lot of experiences? Life, especially from a Zen Buddhist point of view, the simpler the life, the greater. And we know that from Thorin Oakenshield telling Bilbo, a simple life. We can all live that way. We don't need a lot of stuff, no matter what the neighbors tell us. All right, number 3 was that they wished I'd had the courage to express my feelings. What a big one. Had the courage to express my feelings. As she wrote, many people suppress their feelings in order to keep peace with others. As a result, they settled for a mediocre existence and never became who they were truly capable of becoming. Many developed illnesses relating to the bitterness and resentment they carried as a result. As a doctor, I can absolutely speak for that. I have never, ever, in over 20 years of medical practice, had an adult cancer patient, not the children, but an adult cancer patient that didn't have serious resentment, bitterness, regret from their past. Not a single case. It does cause disease. It's not worth it. All that matters, in the end of expressing your feelings is that they're your feelings, and you don't owe anyone to try to modify your feelings for them. Okay, how can they truly love you if you're not being who you're supposed to be? All right, the fourth, that they said they wished I had stayed in touch with my friends. She wrote, often they would not truly realize the full benefits of old friends until their dying weeks, and it was not always possible to track them down. I've seen this personally with patients as they were dying, and they tried to find their old friends and couldn't find it. They'd waited too late. Many had become so caught up in their own lives that they had let golden friendships slip by over the years. There were many deep regrets about not giving friendships the time and effort that they deserve. Everyone misses their friends when they're dying. Fortunately, I have seen that. Okay, number 5, that they wish that I'd had let myself be happier. What a simple statement, that they wish that they had let themselves be happier. She wrote, this is surprisingly a common one. Many did not realize until the end that happiness is a choice. They had stayed stuck in old patterns and habits. The so-called comfort of familiarity overflowed into their emotions as well as their physical lives. Fear of change had them pretending to others and to themselves that they were content when deep within they longed to laugh properly and have silliness in their life again. All right, so they had gotten stuck in old patterns. They got comfortable there, not realizing that they weren't really living at all. One of the most important comments that comes from that statement just now is happiness is a choice. And I have told probably thousands of patients over the years, sometimes happiness is just a choice you make. That you go, well, what have I got to be happy about? Well, it's the old cliche, if you look for smoke enough, eventually you'll find fire. Well, you can look for sunlight and eventually find the day. All right, so sometimes you just have to make the choice. Today, I'm going to be happy. Well, don't think about yesterday. I'm not going to think about tomorrow. Today, I'm going to be happy. Today, I'm going to be an elf. And I'm going to be happy no matter what anybody else says. I'll deal with tomorrow when tomorrow comes. And you know what? Eventually, it becomes a habit. Eventually you do learn that, I really am happy and I don't have a whole lot to be sad about. And the things that are happening in my life, well, they're lessons, they're challenges, they're things I need to learn so I can then move on and do something else. So the big take I have on this thing is live your life without regret. Most of us have things in our past that we've done or experienced, and we can sit back and we can have regret about it. But there's a difference between becoming bitter and becoming wise. Two people can experience the very same event. And there'll be those who will become bitter and cast blame, and they will just attract darkness and become dark. Where there's those who can go, okay, that was a real challenge. That was something I needed to learn. I need to learn the lesson from it and then move on. And that's where wisdom comes from. Wisdom comes from properly assimilating an experience in a positive way and moving on with it, learning from it, learning from the experience. So I know it's probably, again, easy for me to say here on this video, be yourself, no matter what anybody else does. I have had the challenges in my life. I'm not somebody who's speaking from a sanctuary, who's had it easy his whole life. I've traveled around the world. I've been in war zones. I've been shot at. I've been in storms at sea. I've been in avalanches. I always survived. Life always worked out. Sometimes I made some pretty iffy choices, but I learned from those choices and I was able to move on. And I'm an elf. If you choose to, you're an elf. You can be whatever you want to be. I love the story from Grey Owl. It's a true story. I just mentioned it before. Grey Owl is a story of back in the early 1900s of an Englishman who loved the American Indians so much that he moved to Canada and took on the persona of an American Indian, North American Indian. This was up in Canada. And he had everyone believing that he was Native American. And he was adopted by this tribe. And they knew who he was, but they adopted him, and he became a member of their tribe. And he then went on and started pushing for, this is in the early 1900s in Canada, where they were starting to fight against the beaver trade and things like that. And he became a major conservationist. And he started writing books, and he became famous the world round of this American Indian who was trying to save his fellow brothers and sisters, the beavers and the trees and so forth. And when he became so famous that this one year, and they had this huge powwow, and it was nations, Native American nations from all different nations all met in this one area, and they all came together to discuss, how to maintain their heritage and how to help the environment and how to help the world. And he was given a personal invitation to come and speak. And what was so wonderful is when he went in there, and this is at the end of the movie, it's a wonderful movie, Grey Owl, and when he went in there, and he was invited into the big teepee where all the chiefs were, and when he walked in, they all got quiet because they knew who he was, all the other Native Americans there. And he walked up, and one of the main chieftains came up to him and walked up to him to greet him. And then he stopped. And the chieftain looked at him really closely. And after just a few seconds, he had a big smile and started laughing and laughing. And all the others in that teepee, they all started laughing because they could see through, and they could see that, okay, he may not have been born Native American, and they could see that he was not, and they laughed about it in a joyful way. And the Native American chief looked at Grey Owl, and he said, "You become what you dream. You dreamed well."
My brother said it is an honor to meet the man called Grey Owl, who has brought much respect for our people.
I'm honored to be here.
My brother says men become what they dream. You have dreamed well.
Very, very important. You want to be an elf, dream an elf, be an elf. Don't live a life of regret that you could have been something far greater than what you allowed yourself to be, simply because of the mood and mores of those around you. Be who you are. Live a life of love and light. Don't live a life of regret. You are very special. Be what you want to be, what your true heart tells you. Mae.